So in today's session, we are going to discuss about these three inventory features. So we will take you through job costing, in which particular scenario you will be deploying this feature. And we'll discuss about one of the small feature that is tracking additional cost. And in relation to this, whatever the item cost tracking in advanced way we have given, we will discuss about these three topics today. So first, let us start with the job costing feature. So when it comes to the job costing feature, we also call this feature as specific order costing. So basically job costing means what? It's all about tracking the related cost and revenue part for the specific projects or the jobs that the customer has taken. So in case if you are in a company, for example, if you consider a company wherein accounting software is being produced. So there are no specific other different product lines the customer is into, right? So for those kind of companies wherein a particular item or service is being rented, those companies will not be able to adopt this feature. So only those companies which undertake a project based or specific jobs based on the customer specifications, that means whatever the service they deliver, for each customer it is different, or whatever the projects that they undertake for different clients, for each product there are different specification. Those kind of industries will be able to use the job costing feature. So it is basically applicable to jobs undertaken based on customer requirements. Example, construction industry, right? So in case if you are a builder, obviously you'll not be constructing a similar kind of buildings for all the customers, right? So you could be into commercial construction, commercial building construction, or you could be into the apartment construction like this, right? So and each of the apartment, whatever as a builder you construct, it will be different based on the client's requirement. So in case of printing press also. So in case if I'm running a printing press, obviously the service that I'm delivering to my customer is basically the printing of whatever the specification that they have given. So though the work is same, but my work will be based on the customer specification, right? So whatever the invitation card I print, it will not be same for all the clients. So for each client, based on their specification or based on their requirement or need, the job will be undertaken. Similarly, in case of interior decoration and engineering works, shipping, etc. So these kind of industries mostly will be able to utilize this feature in Tally Prime. So basically, when we are talking about tracking cost, right? So these companies will be majorly tracking what is their material cost in case if they are into goods specific projects, and they will also be tracking the labor cost and whatever the additional costs that they are going to incur. All those things will be categorized as overhead cost in job costing. So majorly they will be tracking their material cost, what is the labor cost, and what are the additional expenses that they have incurred for undertaking that particular project or job to complete it, right? So these are the costs that they will be tracking at a customer level. Next, we'll see how this can be maintained in Tally Prime. So as part of the functional or product, how this has been given in product so that you can understand what are the implementation steps here. So first of all, in the company data, you have to enable it. So obviously it's a part of inventory feature. So you have to navigate to F11 and you have to enable this feature. So let me show you the step. So here for the demo purpose, I have created a demo company here. In this company, I've not created any master so that I can show you from the beginning. So since I want to enable now the job costing in Tally Prime, you can go to Alt-K, company features. So another company feature, as I mentioned, this is a part of inventory. So here you need to enable the option of job costing. So you can see the option here, right? Last from the third one, enable job costing option is available here. So you have to enable this. So once you enable this, you can see here automatically your cost center option is getting enabled, right? So though you go and make it as no, what will happen? Even your job costing will become no. Why? Because in order to maintain the job costing in Tally Prime or Tally RP9, cost centers are must. Why? Because whatever the different projects that we are undertaken as a company, all those different projects or all those different jobs, we will be creating as different cost centers. So that is the reason for maintaining job costing feature, cost center feature also to be enabled. So now I have enabled this feature. So now let us see what type of masters are required to maintain these transactions and generate the reports. So these are the various masters required. So obviously to track the cost and to track the revenue, whatever the ledgers are required, that is also required. But to specifically for job costing, these are the main masters required. For example, as I mentioned that cost centers are required here. Why cost centers are required? So that we can create we can create the different projects or different jobs that we have undertaken as cost centers. Next, we will be creating the godowns. Godowns here are very much important. Godowns or locations. So why it is important means whatever the different job or projects that we have undertaken, that will be linked with the godowns, right? So that we can track the inventory storage. For example, in case if you are a builder, right? And in case if you are constructing one particular commercial building for client A, right? So in order to store the materials in that particular location, you require the godown so that you will be able to track the inventory. So in order to track the inventory for job costing or job specific projects, godowns are required. So next we will be creating the voucher classes in stock journal voucher. So when I'm creating the transaction during that time, I'll explain you why it is required. So first let us create some of the jobs as cost centers. So I'm just going to masters create cost center. So I'm just giving the name here as project 1, commercial three-story building. Right. So while creating the cost center, in case if you want to use this cost center only for the job costing transaction, then you need to enable this option. So there are scenarios wherein the customer may not enable this. So when you do not enable this option, you will not be able to generate the job specific reports. So you need to enable this option. So only in the job costing transaction, this cost center will appear. So for your regular purchase and sales, wherever you are using the cost center, this will not appear. So I'll enable this option. So similarly, for different projects, you can create different cost centers. So after the creation of cost center, as I mentioned that I'll be creating the godown. So since currently in my company, under the F1 features, the settings are of India. So it is showing me the name as godown. So in case if you have set the terminology, accounting terminology as international. So here instead of godown, you will be getting the option of location, right? So both are same. So I'll just enter on this. So in case if you are enabling the location for the first time, so it will give you this particular message, whereas you can either create a new location or you can alter the existing one. So I would like to create a new location. I'll just press enter on create new. So here you can give the address of the location also. So here you'll be getting the option whether you want to use this location for this particular project, so that whenever you make a regular purchases, this particular location will not be able to allocate it, right? So here I'll select the option that this particular location I'm tagging with project 1, so that whatever the different transactions I have recorded using this location, everything will be part of my job costing report. So I'll link it to this particular project. So this is about creation of cost centers for projects, and we are linking locations to the project so that we will be able to track the inventory. I hope these steps are clear. So after this, let us create a few ledgers. So whatever the purchase of raw materials I make for my project, I'll be accounting it through the purchase account. So here I'll be creating the purchase account ledger. So obviously you have to enable this cost center applicability option so that you will be able to tag the purchases. Similarly, in order to track the revenue, I'll be creating sales ledger. Right. And what are the additional expenses that I have got? So I'll be creating them also as ledgers. For example, labor wages. So you can mark it as direct expenses or indirect expenses, however you want to reflect in your profit and loss account. So majorly, since it is labor wages, it will be part of direct expenses. So here also you need to ensure that cost centers are applicable is set to yes. Let me create two more additional expenses. So I'll create one more. In all these additional expenses ledgers or purchase or sales account, I've ensured that cost centers are applicable are set to yes. So I'm also creating my client ledger under sundry debtors for whom I'm completing the project. Right. So obviously you'll be setting the VAT registration details here in case if you want to charge VAT also in the particular bill. I'll accept it. This is part of the normal ledger part. So only the thing is we need to ensure cost centers are set to applicable. Cost center applicability is set to yes. Right. So after this, what I will do, I'll be creating the classes under stock journal voucher type. So for this, we can navigate to masters alter voucher type and then stock journal. So why class is required to create under the stock journal? So we will be creating two classes here. One is for consumption. So why consumption class is required? So in case if I'm doing the construction of a building, so obviously whatever the purchases that whatever the raw materials that I have purchased, right? So what I will do, I have to show that it is being consumed in this particular project, right? So in order to know the consumption cost in that particular project. So for that reason, to track the materials consumption in that particular project, I'll be creating the voucher class here. So I'll just mention as consumption here. So once you press enter here, you'll be getting two options. As I mentioned, two voucher classes required. One is for job costing consumption and another one for intergodown transfer. So currently I'm creating the class for consumption of the materials for the specific job, right? So that is the reason I'll be enabling the second option. Use class for job costing consumption. So next I'll create for transfers. Transfer is nothing but, for example, you have completed the construction in that specific location, right? So obviously there are scenarios wherein the materials are left over, right? So you don't get it waste, right? So in case if you are doing another project, you would like to transfer the leftover materials from one particular project to another project. Right. So in that scenario, if you want to transfer the leftover materials from one particular project to another, then in order to record the entry, you'll be using this voucher class. So that is the reason we have this option. Use class for intergodown transfers. So these are the two voucher classes which we'll be creating under stock journal. So I hope the master creation is clear to all of you. Any doubts so far? Okay. Okay, so thanks for the confirmation. Let me accept this voucher class. So these are certain masters that we created now. So next, what we will do, we will be recording few transactions. After we record the transaction, we will. Okay. Any question or
no, I think there was a small disturbance. Cleared it. You can go ahead.
Okay, not an issue. So once we record the transaction, we will navigate to the specific job report so that you will understand that how we will be able to show the cost tracking and revenue. And based on that, how we will be able to know whether the particular project has incurred the profit or loss, right? So now let us start recording the transaction. So in order to do the construction, obviously I need to have the raw materials first. So what I will do, I'll be recording the purchases. So these transactions may be different for different industries. So for construction, it may start with purchase, right? Because they need to have the materials available for starting the construction. And for different type of industries, it will be different. For example, if I take up the interiors, right? So for interiors, it will be different. So currently I'm recording a purchase entry. So here also in order to allocate, so you can select the cost center classes here, because as you know that in case if you are recording the purchase entry in the item invoice mode, right? By default that cost center allocation screen do not open up, right? So in that scenario, if you want to allocate this purchase to this particular project, you can use this cost center or classes option here. So if you are not getting this cost center or classes option, you can press F12. So under the F12, we have given this option, select cost center or class. So you can enable this option so that you will be able to choose the respective cost center in the purchase entry. So now here I do not have the items created. So let me just create few. So when I'm making a purchase, either I can choose that I'm going to store them directly in the specific location where the construction is happening, or first I'll store in my location, and to whichever particular construction location the items are required, I'll be transferring to that particular location, right? So that is also possible. So it based on the customer requirement, the customer can choose the location here. So currently, if I choose main location, directly this entry will not be part of the job work analysis report. So again, you have to transfer from main location to the respective location where the project is undertaken. So for that, again, you may need to require to record the stock journal entry. So if that is customer requirement, they can proceed with that. Or in case if they're making the supply directly to the location where the project is getting constructed, they can select the same location here. So let me just create few items required. So I'm sure all of you are aware about item creation. So I'm just going a bit fast here. Right. So currently I've just used these particular 3 items for the construction purpose. Right. After this, in case if VAT is applicable, you can select the VAT ledger here. So now I made the purchases. Now let us see the impact in the reports. So in order to extract the report for specific project, either you can click on go to here, or you can navigate from display, statements of inventory. And for the specific job costing, we do have the job work analysis report. So in this particular job work analysis report, here you will not get all the cost centers that you have created unless and until you have enabled the option used for job costing. So only those cost centers in which this option is enabled, those jobs or projects will appear here. So you can enter on the specific project. So now you can see the detailed report wherein it will give you a separate heading for tracking revenue and for tracking your cost. So based on the cost and revenue that you have tracked, it will show you whether for this particular project or job, you have made a profit or loss. So now whatever the purchase entry that we have made, it is displaying under inwards, right? So you can see here, based on the purchase, it is showing you the purchase cost. So if I press enter, it will show you the location where exactly this particular project is undertaking and what is the inward value. So you can further drill down to know the breakup of different items which is being consumed in this particular or which is being purchased for this particular project, right? So currently this particular items are having only the purchase entry. So whatever the new purchases, either single purchase or the multiple purchases you make for this particular project, all those consolidated value will show under your inward value option. So in case if you have recorded any opening balance for these items for this particular location, then it will show you under opening value, right? So there are scenarios that the construction is started in this particular year, but you may not be able to complete in the same year, right? So in that scenario, what you will do, you'll carry forward those item balances also to the next financial period. And if customer is maintaining two different companies, obviously he will be entering the opening balance in the item masters, right? So while entering that item opening balances, he can select these particular locations, tag to the cost center, and he will be able to get the opening value here. And once these items are consumed for the particular project, it will be captured under consumption. Guys, clear with the columns here? When exactly the values will shift from one column to another? So when the same value is getting consumed, so obviously all this value will be shifted to consumption here. So it doesn't mean that purchases will show once and consumption also will show once, and it will be creating a duplication of values here. So once we consume, the inward value will get reduced. Okay, so Shakil has a question, any option to get quantity-wise report also? So currently here, the quantity option is not there, only the value option is there. So in order to get the quantity, you have to further drill down, Shakil. Consolidated quantity view option is not available here. Yeah, consolidated is not available. So for that thing, what you can do is, anyway, this location is tagged to this particular project, right? So what you can do is you can navigate to inventory books, godowns or locations. You can enter on this particular location. So here you will be able to get the closing balances with quantity. You can press F12. So this report is similar to your stock summary. So from here, you can enable inwards in case if there are any consumption. You can also enable outward. So here you will be able to get the consolidated quantity. So this report, you can use it as annexure to that main report. Will it suffice your requirement, Shakil? Can you confirm? Okay, others got this report, right? Why we navigated to this go down summary. So we had a requirement that for a specific job, I would like to know the quantity details also, because in the job work summary, I was getting only the consolidated values. So if that is the scenario, we request you to come to this go down summary and search for this particular location. So anyway, this location entries are tagged to one particular cost center. So here you will be able to get the quantity wise, rate wise information also. Okay. So now we had made the purchase. So it could be multiple purchase entries also you can tag it, right? So now based on whatever the purchase that we have made. So in case during that purchase, if I have incurred some additional cost, for example, I have incurred the transportation cost so that I have to ship those materials to the location where the project is taking up, right? So what I can do for accounting expenses, either I can use the payment voucher or I can use the general voucher, right? So any of these entries will also participate in the reports. For example, I'm recording a payment entry, which I've got after some 3 to 4 days. So you will also get this cost center class in the payment voucher. So as I mentioned, if you're not getting this option, press F12 and enable the option, right? So you can select the account through whichever mode you have made the payment. And here I'll be selecting transport charges, right? So this cost I'm linking to this particular project. Now let me press enter and accept it and navigate to the report. So you can just type as job in GoTo. So you'll be getting this job work analysis report. I'll press enter. So you can see whatever the expenses that I've tracked will also be available as part of the cost of expenses. So if you have created that ledger under direct expenses, it will show the grouping as direct expenses here. And if you have grouped that ledger as indirect expenses, the group name will change accordingly here. And if you're tracking both direct and indirect expenses, both the things will be part of this. Right. So, for example, you have incurred some commission charges, right, which you are making a payment to a broker or commissioner for getting the particular client, right? So those will be part of your indirect expenses. So accounting expenses you have incurred for this particular project. So all those will be part of the indirect expenses, which you can also show in this particular report. So the same payment entry you can also create using the journal voucher also. So even during the journal voucher, you will be able to allocate the cost center and you will be able to bring up that entry in the job work analysis report. So now let us record the stock journal entry for showing the consumption, right? So stage wise, obviously there will be a consumption of materials in case if it is a construction. So stage wise, whenever you want to show the consumption, you can keep recording the stock journal entries. So I'll navigate to other vouchers. So under the stock journal, here, let me select the class as consumption, right? So here I'll select the item which I'm going to consume it. And you need to ensure that you are going to consume it from the specific location. Right. So in case if there are any additional items also you have consumed, you can select it and do not enter anything under destination or production. Press enter and accept it. So after this, let me navigate to the report to see where exactly this is being captured. So now you can see here, it will show you the consumption details because obviously the inverts are there, right? So in order to lessen that, I have to show the consumption. So you can see here, based on whatever the stock journal entry that we have recorded for showing the consumption of materials, the consumption value has been captured. So invert value was so and so, right? So now you can see the same thing is captured under consumption up to the value that we have consumed. Based on this, it will show you the closing value of the inventory in that particular project. So we also created the stock journal voucher class for transferring the material from one project to another, right? So if you record the stock journal entry using that particular voucher class, the same value will be captured under this outwards, that is inter-project transfer. Guys, any doubts so far? So here you can see that on a real-time basis, this information will keep updating, right? So as of now, we are having only the cost details. So that is the reason here it is showing net loss. So tracking this cost also will help you to determine what should be the selling price for that particular project, or in case if it is already committed to customers, you can always have a real-time tracking of the cost, so that in case if it is increasing, you can have a better control on the cost. So you can see here in my scenario, I recorded the purchase, right, for getting the inverts, right? So in case if you are in a project wherein you are manufacturing something for the customer, right? For example, it could be the printing press example, whatever I have shown you, right? So in that the manufacturing will happen, right? So in that scenario, if you are recording a manufacturing journal, so the manufacturing journal cost will be shown here. So you can specifically record a manufacturing journal and display for and show for which particular project you are doing the manufacturing. So it also applicable for the manufacturing jobs also. So currently in my thing, it's not applicable. So I'll not be recording the manufacturing journal. So in certain industries where the manufacturing activity is undertaken, so they will be recording the manufacturing journal also. So such value will be brought under this invert. So under the invert, what will happen? Whatever the consumption, whatever the stock item has come in, shown under the consumption, it will show here. And under the outwards, whatever the production item that you have selected, it will show as outward value. So in order to show the stock transfer from one project to another, let me just create one more project. Right, so here I'm creating another project. And let me also create a location. So I'll link it with project 2. I'll enter and accept it. Right. So now what I'll do, I'll be recording a transfer entry. So here I'll select destination go down as the residential project where I'm going to transfer the materials. And here I'll select the respective stock item or stock items. And here I'll be selecting the respective project from where exactly the transfer is happening. So either you can select the multiple projects. In case if you're transferring the goods from multiple projects to one particular project, you can select all those items here and you can select all those projects here. So it is basically many to one project transfer entry. Or in case if you want to record different vouchers for different transfer happening from different projects, you can also choose to record different stock journal vouchers. So now let me enter and accept it. So now you can see here the respective entry is captured under inter-project transfer because this value will get reduced so that even my cost will also come down here, right? So now we know that as on date, what exactly is our cost. So based on this, we can also quote the selling prices or we can control this cost if selling price is already committed to customer prior. So these are the different transactions which will participate here, right? So obviously the customer will be repeating these entries because there will be several purchases happening for a project, several manufacturing activities might happen for a particular job to be completed, right? So it cannot be with one particular single voucher. So it will be multiple vouchers, but every time they need to ensure that they will tag it to the respective cost center properly. So if they make any mistake over there, obviously even your job work analysis report will not give you the proper inference about the profit or loss that you have made. Okay, so currently here under revenue, nothing is capturing because we did not record any sales entry or the receipt voucher. So let me record a sales entry here. So obviously I do not have the items created here. So I'll be recording it in the accounts invoice mode. So you can see here, even in accounts invoice mode, you can select the cost center class here. I'll select the sales account. So if VAT is applicable, you can charge the VAT here and you can accept it. After this, let me navigate to job work analysis report. So you can see here your whatever the revenue that you have tracked through sales account, it will capture here, right? So based upon the cost and the revenue details, it will show you the net profit or loss. So this is how once the project is completed, you will be able to know whether you have incurred the profit or loss for the particular project. And in case if you are having different projects of same nature, and if you want to relate the cost or revenue details of one particular project with another, you can simply press Alt C here. And for the specific project, you can load the information so that you can also have a comparison view. Right. So basically, in case if two projects have been completed, which is of similar in nature, and you want to understand or study about the expenses, where exactly the things have gone wrong so that you can improvise in future. So this one will be acting as a MIS report for the owner or the decision maker in the organization. So you'll be also able to showcase this comparison feature to the customer. So in case if you want to compare with another project, you can press Alt C and you can keep adding the projects here. So this is about the job costing, right? And whatever the net profit or loss here we are showing, this is based on the tracking that we have made to this particular cost center. So this net profit or loss may not match with the profit and loss, what is appearing in your profit and loss account. So many a times customers will get confused that whatever the net profit or loss here I'm getting, this will be matching with my profit and loss account statement. So that will happen only when all the entries have been tagged to the projects, right? In case of a scenario wherein you have recorded certain transaction which is not tagged to any particular project, right? So in that scenario, the net profit or loss will not match. For example, you might be incurring some expenses, office salary and all you have incurred, right? So considering that, here it will show the net profit or loss. So that will not be part of your specific projects, right? You'll be tracking only the labor cost, not the salary that you have paid to your office staff. So in that scenario, obviously your profit and loss account, net profit or loss will not match with your job costing or job costing report. So this we need to be very clear with the customers so that they understand that how the behavior of net profit or loss will work in this particular report and with the job work analysis report. So this completes the job costing feature. Let me know any doubts or any clarifications. Are you guys are now clear and confident about implementing this feature?
Hi.
Yeah. Hello.
Sorry. This additional cost you said, I mean, apart from the labor cost or any additional expenses. So let's say I'm running a two project or three projects at a time. So let's say I'm
Yeah.
running a manufacturing. So this I pay electricity or salary at a whole month. So that will include two three projects. So I want to see my project with those expenses. So that expenses I will be posting it as a one expense. So is there
Yeah.
any way that we can distribute those expenses to each job orders?
Okay. So for distributing these expenses, let me know. So what voucher type you are using? Are you using general or are you using payment voucher? So anyway, you'll get the option. For example, let me record a payment entry. Okay. So here you can select cost center classes or not applicable in case if you want to distribute among different projects. So electricity charges obviously I've incurred in a month. For example, it is 1 lakh. So here what will happen? You can distribute among both these projects. So like this distribution you can do with a single entry. In purchases, in case if you're recording it using the item invoice mode, it will not be possible because since we are not populating this cost allocation screen. So for one purchase, only one cost center class will be able to use. But however, in sales and other vouchers and all, this particular class creation will populate in case if you are selecting not applicable under cost center or classes. So with this, you can record one single entry for different projects.
Okay, and the salary, let's say, if we are using the payroll, then
Okay.
how these labor wages will be bifurcated?
No, actually, what will happen is in case if you are creating, if you are maintaining payroll for the different laborers who are working in different projects. Okay. And obviously, those laborers, in case if you have created the employee master, by defaultly, they will be created as cost center. So that expense will not participate directly in your project costing. You have to show that as separate expenses together.
Then, yeah, I got it. But then our overall P&L will go wrong, right?
Yeah, you have to knock off those expenses, sir, later. For example, let me just create the payroll one here so that it's more clear to all of us. So here I'm just enabling payroll. Okay. So here what I'll do, I'll create one employee. So currently I've just taken as 10,000. So here, obviously, I don't get any option to tag it to my respective project because this worker today, he may work in one particular project and tomorrow he may shift to some other location. He may start working that. So currently that transfers from one particular project to another. In payroll, we have not handled. So that is the reason this expense will not directly participate there. So now what will happen is in case I'm recording a payroll voucher. This is to account the salary for this employee. Let me create salary payable. Okay. So this is the exact salary of that particular employee. So now what I will do, I'll be recording a payment voucher, right? So I'll use Control F, start payment, sorry, payroll autofill, worker, salary payable, and I'm paying through cash. So here, let me see if I can enable the cost center applicability in this ledger, because whatever the payheads we create, everything will be part of our ledger. So I'll just go here to my salary payable, and here I'll enable the option cost centers are applicable. So I'll enable this option. So now while doing the making of payment of salary, which I use autofill option here. Okay, so since it is an autofill voucher, the cost center allocation will not appear. So I'll go back to my payment entry. So here what I will do, I'll be tagging to this particular project. For example, I'll tag it to this project too. I'll enter and accept it. So now let me go to this report of job work analysis. Yeah, that entry will not participate here, sir. Though we select because it is a payroll's payment voucher, so it will not participate. Let me recheck once again. Yeah. Why it is not participating is here basically we have created this as current liabilities. So it's not participating there as expenses. So only if the ledger is created as expenses, only during that time it will participate there. So even though we allocate the cost center, so payroll vouchers cannot be directly linked to the job work analysis report.
Okay.
So now what we can do is, in case if you are maintaining the payroll, right? So now you have accounted that salary payable. So now all the salary expenses got cleared from the salary payable, right? So in case before dispersing that, whatever the payroll voucher you have recorded, obviously all those expenses are part of your salary payable, right? So that amount you can transfer from salary payable to some other expense voucher, so that when you're creating a payment voucher without the autofill option, you'll be able to link it and show it in your job work analysis report. But what will happen is, in case if you are generating payment advice and other reports for payroll, then since we have not recorded autofill payroll voucher, sorry, autofill payment voucher for salary payment, so there you will not be able to generate the details. Only you'll be able to generate up to payroll voucher. In case if you want to transfer and bring those values directly under your job work analysis report.
Okay.
Okay. So Umar is having a question. Can you please show manufacturing journal process for this job costing? Okay, so let me consider the same items and show you. So the manufacturing journal, you'll be recording it using stock journal voucher. Here, no need to create any voucher class, but here you can enter on this change mode, right? So once you click on change mode in Tally Prime, you'll be getting the option of use for stock manufacturing journal. And here you'll select the item which you are manufacturing it. For example, let me create the item as invitation card. Okay. So for example, I'm just tagging to this second project. So I'm manufacturing some around 1,000, right? So component that I'm using is using paper. So there will be other materials also like ink and other things. So currently I'm just showing with the paper roll. And here, in case during the manufacturing itself, if you want to show any additional cost, you can do that also. For example, here the labor wages are there, 1,000 rupees extra have incurred, right? So in this way, you'll be able to account manufacturing journal. And during this manufacturing, obviously under the godown and under the this particular main godown where this particular manufacturing is happening, you need to ensure that you select the location which is being tagged to the particular project. So let me accept this now. Go to job work analysis. So currently it is showing under this inward value as I recorded using the stock journal. So if you have created a manufacturing journal as a separate voucher, like how we used to create in Tally RP9, right? So using that new voucher type, if you create the entry, then it will be part of this manufacturing journal. Otherwise, it will be considered the similar behavior will happen, but only the thing is it will show directly under the inwards. So if you drill down, you can come to know that because of the manufacturing of this invitation card using the stock journal, so this is the quantity that you have got as inward. And the item whatever have consumed for the manufacturing, it will be shown under this other transfers. So currently this is not showing under consumption because I recorded using the stock journal. So if you have created the manufacturing journal as a separate voucher type and you use it, then it will be showing under consumption. But the behavior and the closing value impact will be same whether you are recording stock journal with the change mode option or you have created a voucher type. In case if the customer has brought forward his data from ERP to Tally Prime, obviously that entry will be there as it is. That voucher type will be there, manufacturing journal. So he will be using that particular manufacturing journal voucher type to record the transaction. So even if he use that also, the impact will be same. I was just explaining when exactly this track additional cost in purchase will be used. So basically, this is a purchase invoice feature. So using this particular feature, we will not be able to generate any specific reports. So this feature is purchase invoice specific, and we will be using this feature only when we know what are the additional costs that has been incurred during the purchase, right? It could be the transportation and it could be the extra packaging charges or labor expenses in case if you know during the purchase entry and you want to allocate those expenses to the item cost, right? Instead of showing separately the direct expenses or indirect expenses in profit and loss account, if you want to allocate these expenses to your item cost, then you'll be using this particular feature. And as I mentioned that this is only applicable for the purchase invoice, and purchase invoice customer might be entering in invoice mode or in the voucher mode, right? Invoice mode means item invoice mode. So in case if he is recording the entry in item invoice mode, there will be a different type of configuration to be made. And in case if he is recording the purchase entry in voucher mode always, then it has to be accounted in a separate way. So we will be able to support this feature in both these modes of purchase invoice. So before I take you through the product, let me know any doubts here. Are you clear why industries may tag their additional cost to the item cost? So that their closing stock value will be affected accordingly, right? So if you don't tag your additional cost specific to that item, obviously your closing stock values will be different. So again, here we are not mandating anybody that this is the way to account based on the business scenario or based on the accounting practice the customer has. We will be suggesting about this feature. So this is invoice feature. So using this feature, you will not be able to generate any specific reports. So you cannot generate any report wherein it will display that which cost has been allocated to which item, what is the value. So those information you will not be able to track as a separate report. You can record the purchase entry in two different modes, right? Either it could be in the item invoice mode or it could be in the voucher mode. So if you are recording the entry in the item invoice mode and you want to allocate these expenses, then the configuration has to be made in the ledger, right? For example, let me already have created the transport expenses ledger. So let me just go to the alteration of the ledger. Okay. So in the alteration of the ledger or in the creation, so here I'll press F12. So under the F12, here you'll be able to get the option, select appropriation method to allocate additional cost in invoice mode of purchases only. So that also here we have clearly mentioned in the brackets in which particular mode this will be used. So you need to enable this option in your expenses. So once you enable this option, so here you can see additional cost in purchase invoice, how you want to allocate this ledger value for your items, whether you want to do the appropriation by quantity of the items that you have selected for the different stock items, or you want to apportion the value based on the value basis, item value basis, right? For example, in case in that entry, you have selected only one item, right? So Whether you select here appropriate by quantity or appropriate by value, it doesn't make any difference because entire value will get allocated to the same item. So in case if your invoice is having more than one item, right? So in that scenario, to apply that ratio in which the cost distribution should happen, system will decide based on the methods that you have selected here. So either it could be based on the quantity of different items, the ratio will be taken out, or based on the stock item value entered in the transaction. So you can choose any of these methods based on the customer scenario. So here I'll enter and accept it. So now let me record a purchase entry. So purchase entry, I'll be recording in item invoice mode. So here I'll select the quantity. I'll select the rate. Right. So after this, what I will do, in case if I'm selecting different list of stock items here, after that here, I'll be selecting the additional ledger. So here I'll be selecting this transportation charges. And here I'll mention the amount details. Right. So in this way, I'll be recording this entry. After recording this entry, let me navigate to stock summary. So you can see here, the item quantity was 1000 and purchase rate was 100. But here you can see the closing value is 1,01,000 because we have additionally allocated 1000 rupees to this particular item cost. Right. So that is what will be the impact in the stock summary because we have allocated this additional cost. And now let me navigate to profit and loss account. So here you can drill down and see there will not be any entry captured here because the same value I have allocated to my item cost. So again, here I'll not be bringing that value. Otherwise, it will lead to the duplication, right? So that is the reason whatever the expenses that we have already tagged to the item cost, those will not be part of direct expenses or indirect expenses separately once again under your profit and loss account. So this is the impact when you are recording in the invoice mode. And now let us see how do we account it using the voucher mode. So I'll be changing the mode here as voucher. I'll credit the party. Debit the purchases. I'll select the item here. So once I select the item, so here you can see I'm not getting any screen related to the additional cost, right? So here I do not want to select this particular ledger. So I want to get a screen of track additional cost, which was appearing earlier in Tally ERP9 by default. So up till Tally ERP9, we did not have separate option to enable that, right? So in case if the customer is using Tally Prime and if he has the practice of recording in purchase entry, so then directly you can't just tell them about recording this purchase entry because here that allocation screen will not appear. So in order to ensure that allocation screen will appear, first of all, what you need to do, you have to go to Masters Alter, voucher type, go to purchase. So here under this particular purchase voucher type, we have given the option of track additional cost for purchases. So in Tally Prime, you'll be getting this option in purchase voucher type creation or alteration. You need to enable this option in case if you are recording the entry in voucher mode. If you're not recording the entry in voucher mode, which basically most businesses do not do, in that scenario, you have to tell the customer to do the configuration only in ledger. So now I'll enable this option. Let me go back to the entry. I'll select the party. I'll select the purchase ledger. Select the item. So now you can see once after I select the item, this additional cost detail screen will appear. So here either I can select single expense ledger or multiple expense ledger also I can select. You can allocate based on the percentage, right? Or you can enter the direct amount here. So you can see here below the item, whatever is the exact value, it will appear. And whatever the additional cost that we have allocated, that particular information also will be part of this item allocation screen. I'll press enter and accept it. Now let me go back to stock summary. You can see here, even with this particular method, it will be allocating the additional cost. So using the item invoice mode or using the voucher mode, this is the configuration that you will be informing to customer to do so that he will be able to allocate all the additional expenses to a particular stock item or to different quantities of different stock items in the purchase itself. And I hope you guys are clear about the impact in the profit and loss account. So whatever the additional costs that we are tagging to item cost, those costs will not be appearing separately in your profit and loss account, because those are already part of my closing stock valuation. So this is a very small feature. So apart from this, you do not get any other reports to know the information about this additional cost. Is it clear? Can we move forward to the next topic? Any questions so far?
No.
Okay. Some of you will be new to the process. Any doubts from you guys? Is it clear? Are you able to understand the concepts and its impact on the accounting? Okay, so there is a question. Can you show by creating supplier ledger and book purchase entry with additional cost? Okay, this is from Webcom. So you want me to record the entry in item invoice mode or in the voucher mode? So even if you select the party also or supplier also, there will not be any impact for the supplier because it will be impact cost. So I'll just show you in invoice item invoice mode. I'm creating the supplier ledger here. Yeah, and show a supplier ledger account. So supplier ledger account will be having 1,02,000 because we are supposed to make payment of including total transport charges to the supplier, right? So you can also see that the same thing is captured under your bill wise also. So the same thing will get posted to the ledger account. So I'll accept this. So let me navigate to display accounts book ledger and then the vendor account. So you can see here both the values will be available. Is it clear, Webcom, why both the values are appearing here? Because we are supposed to make the payment of both the things, right? So if it is not, if this cost is not belonging to this vendor, obviously we will not be showing that in the same purchase invoice. For example, you are just buying items from this vendor and you are arranging for transportation through some other transport agency. So in that scenario, you'll not bring those transport expenses in this voucher itself, right? So you'll be either accounting through a separate purchase voucher or through a payment voucher or through a general voucher for different transport agency. Yeah, so there is a question from Equinox. If transport charge is our cost additional, also if we want to affect to the item cost. So that is a different method. So if transport charges is being borne by you and you want to allocate that to the item cost, then what you can do is in the transport charges, you can enable inventory values are affected option. So let me just show you that. So I'll be creating this ledger, transport to charges, right? So while creating this particular expenses, what you will do here, you'll be enabling the option inventory values are affected to yes and accept it. So now what you will do in order to make the payment for those transport expenses, which is being borne by you. So what you will do, either you can record using payment voucher or journal voucher, right? So you can record, for example, using payment voucher. So what will happen here, you'll be getting the inventory allocation screen, right? So you'll select the item. You select the location. So here you should not be entering the quantity because quantity is already accounted using my purchase voucher. So here what I will do, I'll just mention the value of the additional cost that I've incurred. So like this, you can allocate it to different items also. I'll enter and accept it. So now if I go to stock summary, you can see here whatever the additional transport expenses that I've incurred, that will be part of this item cost as well. So including this value, it will be affecting my closing stock valuation. So actually, this is an alternative method. Currently, whatever this third scenario I've shown to you, Quinox, because this we call it as landing cost. So landing cost in as a holistic feature, we are yet to have this in the product. So till we come up with that holistic feature for accounting landing cost incurred for the purchases, this is one of the alternative what we can suggest to customers. Okay. Okay, Technos also had the question if supplier will not pay the transportation, how to enter. So using this particular payment voucher or general voucher, you can account it. So this scenario also was relating to your scenario, Technos. I hope this is clear to you now. Okay. Equinox, in case if you are using the control account and then you are having another ledger also for transportation, what will happen to customer is it will be increasing the number of voucher entries for him. And that knockoff and all, obviously, it requires some expertise for customer to know. Because in case if they miss out one entry also to do the knockoff of expenses, obviously, it will be a impact on their profit and loss account. So frequent knocking off of the ledger accounts, we should not be recommending to customers. So now we are going to discuss about the item cost tracking feature. So this feature was introduced in Tally ERP 9. In before versions, it's not available. So basically, what do you mean by item cost tracking, right? So it basically refers to the tracking of the accumulated cost and revenues associated with a particular quantity of stock item across the various transactions that you have recorded, right? So in earlier feature, what we saw is you made a purchase. So during the purchase, whatever additional cost was known to you, you just tag to that particular item, right? You tag to that particular item's specific quantity, whatever that you have bought, right? So that was only a limited feature, right? So in case if a customer would like to know for a particular stock item, whatever the either it could be whatever the purchases that I have made of that particular stock item, in what quantity. So, for example, I'm making a purchase of 100 rolls of paper, right? So, for making this purchase of 100 rolls of paper, I want to know what exactly is the different costs that I have incurred, so that when I make a resale of this item, I can know the entire cost of this particular 100 rolls exactly, so that I'll be able to better quote my selling prices, right? And I also want to know, in case if I have made a profit or loss out of that particular purchase or out of the particular manufacturing activity I have done, in that scenario, we will be suggesting item cost tracking. So first feature, whatever we discussed, again, that is also related to tracking the additional cost, but that was specific to only one entry, right? So that feature did not give you any advanced report. So again, we will be suggesting these options based on the customer requirement. If customer says that I want to link my purchases with my sale and I want to know what is the exact profit that I have made, right? In that scenario, we will be suggesting about item cost tracking. And if a customer says that I have manufactured certain quantity of a finished product, and when I make a continuous sale of that particular quantity, whatever I have manufactured in stage 1, I would like to track and I want to know whether I have made a profit or loss, right? So even in that scenario, you can suggest about this particular feature. So this item cost tracking is not only specific to trading industries, but also can be utilized by manufacturing segments as well. Are you guys got the clarity about this feature? When exactly you'll be recommending this? So it's advanced to whatever the additional cost tracking we saw few minutes back. So that feature did not have any tracking mechanism or did not have any mechanism to generate the reports, but this is an extension of tracking. Based on the customer requirement, what exactly is the reports that you would like to generate? Based on that, we will be recommending different tracking features to the customer. Any doubts in understanding this concept? Okay, so let me show you some of the advantages over here. So since we are tracking the cost for a specific quantity of an item, what will happen? It will continuously enable me to know the running cost of that particular stock item, right? And also this feature will help me to track the profitability, because here I'm not only tracking the cost, but also I'm relating to the revenue that I have generated from that particular stock item. So obviously, this will also help me to track the procurement cost or landing cost or the manufacturing cost involved in that particular stock item. So these are nothing but tracking the overheads, right? So not only the purchase cost, but also the various different expenses that you have incurred for a particular stock items quantity, you'll be able to track here. So what will happen here is the link will be created to track between different transactions. So it's not that only to accounting entries will be able to track in the product, but also you'll be able to link accounting entries with inventory vouchers with accounting also you'll be able to track it, and you'll be able to get the complete report of the stock item profitability. So since we are continuously tracking the cost, obviously the business will be able to have a better control on the cost, and it will also help them to set the selling prices accurately for the specific stock items. Right? So these are the various advantages which item cost tracking feature will provide. So I would like to pause here and ask you, if you are clear with the concept, then we will take you through the product feature. Any doubts so far? I hope you guys are not getting confused between the earlier features, whatever we discussed about tracking the cost and the item cost tracking feature. Because in job costing also, we saw that expenses were tracked. And even in additional cost tracking also, we saw two methods, and additionally, how we will be able to track when we are incurring the expenses on our own, right? So you should not be confused with all those the earlier part, whatever we have discussed with item cost tracking. No comments in chat. Guys, you are clear about the concept now, right? So why we are stressing so much on the concept is because once the domain or the concept is clear to you, then only you'll be able to recommend the different features to different customers based on their industry, right? Yeah. So now we will see how we will be able to implement this particular item cost tracking. So it's a very simple. So first, we will be enabling item cost tracking feature in F11. So as it is advanced inventory feature, again, it is part of F11. So let me navigate to Tally and enable this option. So I'll go to Alt K company, F11 features. So here you do have the option of cost tracking. So you can see here, enable cost tracking option is available. So in case if customer is using ERP9, again, the ERP9 customer also will be able to utilize the feature. So there also in F11, F2 inventory features, this option is available. So you can enable in F11. So once you enable in F11, then you have to enable the feature in your masters and the respective ledgers, whichever you want to track as part of the cost or revenue in your stock items, right? So whatever the different various expense ledgers you have created, either it could be direct expenses, indirect expenses, or income ledgers or sales account ledgers, only in these kind of ledgers, you'll be able to go and enable this cost tracking feature. So already we have recorded the expense ledgers. So let us go to the master's alteration. And enable the option. So you can see here additional cost. Just a minute. Here you will be getting the option allow cost allocation for stock items. So this option you have to enable so that whenever you are recording the transaction for this ledger, you will be able to tag to which particular purchase you have incurred this, right? So you can enable this option, allow cost allocation for stock item. Similarly, I'll be enabling in my transport charges also. I'll enter and accept it. So purchase accounts also I'll go and enable because I want to track my purchases also. Allow cost allocation, stock items I'll enable. So similarly, even in my sales account, in order to track the profitability, here also I'll be enabling this option, allow cost allocation for stock item. So in case if you are a manufacturer, what will happen? Obviously, you'll be enabling this option in your item masters for which particular item you want to track the cost and revenue, right? And during the manufacturing entry, in case if you are selecting any additional cost expense ledgers, in those ledgers also you can enable. In case if you are recording the additional expenses separately, so obviously even in those ledgers you can enable. So any entries you record against a specific tracking number, you will be able to get the report accordingly. So there is no separate configuration available for trading segment and manufacturing segment. So with respect to the configuration, it is same. Only the voucher entries will be different. So currently I have enabled this in the ledgers. So obviously now I have to enable in the item master. So when it comes to the enabling in item master, you need to ensure that only the tradable stock items are enabled with this option. Not the items which are capital in nature or not the items which are meant for the consumption in the same industry. For example, the businesses also will create the stock items which are like, for example, stationery or the computers which they are using, right? So all those are for the company consumption. So that is for own consumption. So in those kind of items, it's not required to be enabled. So obviously, as a owner, I'll be more interested in knowing whether my tradable stock items, how my tradable stock items are performing, right? So only in the tradable stock items, you can recommend the customer to enable this option. But again, in case if customer wants to see the exact cost of his other goods also, still he can go and enable. That is his choice. So I'm here creating one stock items, for example. I'm just creating one item here, which is a tradable item. So in order to enable the item cost tracking for any stock item, units of measure is must. So if the units of measure is not configured, you'll not be able to enable this option because it is linked with the specific quantity of the stock item. It is not linked to only the item master, right? So that is the reason units of measure is mandate here. So once you select the units of measure, you can see under additional details, enable cost tracking option is available, similar to your ledger master. So in case if you are not getting this option, you can press F12 and you can enable this option. Is cost tracking applicable for stock items? So you need to enable this option in case if it is disabled. Otherwise, by default, that will be enabled. And here you need to enable this option for a specific stock item. I'll enter it, accept it. So now I enabled in the item master and also in the respective ledgers. So now what we have to do, we can start recording the transaction. So transaction here, it's not specific that I have to record only stock journal, I have to record only this entry. So any transaction in which you are having a specific cost or specific revenue related to that item and you want to track, right? So in all those transactions, you will be able to define the tracking number. So in case if you guys are aware about our sales order cycle or purchase order cycle, so there also when you record the receipt note or when you record the delivery note, tracking number will generate, right? So that tracking number, obviously we will be tracking in respective sales and purchases, right? So that is how the tracking is created. In the similar fashion, in the item cost tracking also, we have brought up this cost tracking number. However, it will appear in the sales cycle or purchase cycle. The same behavior we have introduced here also. But here what will happen? You will be able to track the same tracking number across all the transaction unless until you want to close it. So I'll tell you when exactly you'll be closing the tracking number. But in the sales cycle and purchase cycle, what will happen? When you record a sales entry or purchase entry for the tracking number will be closed automatically. But here the behavior is slightly different. Unless until you manually go and close, you'll be able to get that same tracking number again and again in different transactions. So now considering I'm into a trading, let me just start recording few transactions. I'll record first purchase of HP laptop because I don't have the stock, right? So what has happened under the purchase account, I have enabled that item cost tracking. I'll select the item here, HP laptop, right? So under which location I'm purchasing, that also I can specify. And this is the exact quantity I'm making a purchase. So here I'm mentioning the rate here. So once I mention the quantity, so you can see here the cost tracking number field is available below the item details, right? So by default, it will show you the voucher number. But if you want to provide the new number as cost tracking number, you want to generate a new number for this particular entry. It could be at purchase entry or it could be at a manufacturing entry. So that is depending on the customer business, right? So I'm a trader. So I'll be generating the cost tracking number always in my purchases. So here I'll mention new number. And here I'll give the number which I can easily relate, right? And if you are making a purchase for different locations, if you want to generate different tracking number, that is also possible. So the moment you start selecting the different locations here, cost tracking will appear. You can allocate different tracking number and you'll be able to generate different tracking number in a single purchase entry itself. That is also possible. So currently I'm just generating one tracking number here for easy understanding. So now I'll enter and accept it. So once I record this entry, I would like to know how my reports are impacted, right? So in order to track the cost and revenue for a particular tracking number, we have item cost track analysis report. Either you can search from go to feature or you can go to display, statements of inventory. And here you have got this particular report, item cost analysis. So if you press enter, either you can generate this report at a stock group. So stock group means it will show you all the list of items, all the list of stock groups that you have created. Or you can go to stock items and you can select the particular stock item for which you have enabled this, right? Or based on the cost tracking numbers you want to open the report, you can click on this cost track breakup. So currently I've generated only one tracking number. So all the tracking numbers will appear for which particular stock item you have generated and for how many quantity you have generated, this tracking number will be available here, right? So if I press enter, this is how the detailed report will look like. So currently the value of my purchase is captured under my cost or expenses, right? So I made a purchase of 100 numbers at the rate of 25,000 per number. So it is showing me the total value here. So by default, it will show the group information under cost or expense. You can convert this as ledger wise also. So if you click on ledger wise, so whatever the ledger in which you have enabled that cost tracking option, those ledger names will be appearing here, right? So you can relate this. So cost, expense, revenue, income. So obviously these terminologies are similar to the job costing. So now I made a purchase. So now let me account the additional expenses that I've incurred, right? So what I will do, so for this, I'll be recording a journal voucher, for example. So I'll debit the expenses. So once I debit the expenses, in case if you have enabled the cost tracking number in this ledger, here you can see cost tracking allocation screen will open up, right? So in case if we have created multiple tracking numbers, here you can select the exact tracking number for which particular item you are incurring this labor wages, right? Either you can allocate to a single tracking number or to a single purchase, or if you want to select the multiple tracking numbers, again in the same screen, you will be able to select it. So again, here you should not be entering the quantity, only value has to be entered. Press enter and accept it. So one more expense I want to allocate, that is transportation. So here also I'll be tracking to that particular specific purchase, right? So here I'll credit party or cash or pay, cash or bank, through whichever mode I'm making the payment. So here I'm mentioning being expenses incurred for a specific purchase. Ram, can you mute? I guess.
Yeah. I've muted.
So now I've recorded this journal. So even in this journal, I have allocated the cost tracking number, right? So now let me navigate to report. So you can see here under direct expenses, whatever the additional expenses that we have allocated, it will be part of the report. So just because it is part of the report, it doesn't mean that it is directly allocating that cost to the item, right? So it is not allocated directly to that item cost, like how we saw in our additional cost feature, right? So this has only tracked to the report level. So when you go to the stock summary, you can see only it is showing you the purchase value, right? So only in the report, since we have used this tracking number, it will be showing you the expenses that you have incurred for this 100 numbers. So now what will happen if I go to profit and loss account? So whatever the whatever the expenses that we have incurred, so that will be showing here as it is. So that journal voucher will not be directly allocating to the cost to the stock item master. I hope you guys are clear with the stock allocation. So it is not going to account directly to your item cost because we are not directly allocating here. We are just tracking the expenses and we are bringing under report so that we can understand what is the total cost of that particular stock items quantity. Right. So like this, you can account it the different account different entries wherein you can track this particular tracking number. So now let me just navigate to that report. Statements of inventory, item cost analysis, cost track breakup, right? So now for this 100 numbers, what is the total cost that I have got? 2506, right? And there are scenarios that this entire lot you may not be able to sell at once, right? So you may sell it for different vendors at different prices. So whatever is the exact price, based on that, here you'll be able to know the exact profit that you have got it. For example, 100 numbers are there and this is my total cost. So what is the total cost per number of laptop? It is 2560, right? So for one of the vendor, I may sell 20 numbers at the rate of 26,000. And for another vendor, I may sell it as 27,000. So both the values will appear here. And according to the specific quantity, the exact profit it will show here. So let me show you by recording different sales transaction. So I'm recording the sales entry now, right? So initially I'll record 20 at the rate of 26,000. See, under the sales also, I'm able to track this particular tracking number so that I will be able to know for that purchase exactly how much profit I have made, right? For this vendor, I sold it at 26,000. So now if I go to that report, cost tracking, so under the sales account, what is the value it is showing? 5,20,000, right? So cost was 2560 and I made a sales at 26,000. So my profit per number of laptop was how much? It was 940, right? So 940 into 20 numbers. Here it is showing me the profit of 18,800. So now let me record another entry. For example, I'm making this entry for a different vendor. Ten numbers I'm making. So I'm selling him at 27,000. So here also I'm going to track it, right? Because from the same lot, I'm making a sale here. So now if I come back to the report, it has not got, yeah, that's got refreshed. Yeah. So now the total sales quantity is 30 numbers, right? So based on the total value, it will show the average value here. So you can see here the exact value will be, so from first sale entry, so it calculated the profit at 940 rupees. And from the second sales entry, it will be calculating the profit at 1,940 rupees, right? So based on this sale, based on the exact sales rate, it will show you the profit here. It is not the average profit. It is the exact profit shown based on the quantity that we have sold. So this is how we will be able to track our manufacturing or the particular purchase across the other transaction to know whether for that particular purchase lot I made a profit or loss, or whatever the manufacturing entry that I have recorded for that particular lot of manufactured goods, whether I made a profit or not, you'll be able to track it. Right? So till all these 70 numbers are cleared, which are pending, I'll be able to keep the same tracking number, right? Because as I mentioned earlier, unless and until I close these numbers, the remaining numbers sales, I'll not be closing this tracking number, right? So now let me record another sales entry. And I'll close this tracking. So entire 70 numbers, I'm making a sales and I'm tagging to this tracking number, right? So I'm just accepting this. Now let me go to cost tag breakup report. So now you can see whatever the 100 numbers I have purchased. So everything I have cleared now. And out of this different sales that I have made, this is the exact profit that I have made, right? So this is what the information the customer will be getting. So now since I have cleared this particular quantity, again, the same tracking number I should not be getting in my next entry, right? Otherwise, what will happen? The incorrect tracking will happen and obviously the reports will be showing wrong. So for this reason, we need to educate customer that once your purchase quantity is totally cleared using sales entries or manufactured quantity is totally cleared using the sales vouchers, they are supposed to close the tracking number. So how they are supposed to close the tracking number? Again, it is done through the report. So I'll navigate to statements of inventory, item cost analysis. I'll enter on this stock item. So once I select the item, here it will show me all the list of tracking numbers that I have generated, right? So at a overview level, it will show what are the different tracking numbers I have generated for how many quantities, right? What was the total expense value and what was the total revenue value and what is the profit and loss I have made. So currently there are no quantities pending. So balance at cost is showing nil here, right? So since I have already cleared this, so in order to close this tracking number, what I will do, I'll select this line item. And on the right hand side, we have this option of close cost track, right? So I'll select this. Again, I'll select here. And once again, I need to click on close cost track option so that the specific tracking number will be closed. But however, in the report, you'll be able to get this tracking details. Just because we have closed the tracking number, it doesn't mean that the report will vanish with for this particular tracking number. Report will be having the information, right? So now whenever I'm recording a new entry, it could be any entry, it could be purchase entry or it could be any inventory voucher entry for the particular stock item, that tracking number will not be visible. For example, now I'm recording a new entry. So you can see here that tracking number is not available here. So now what I will do, I'll be generating a new number for this purchase and I'll be continuing with that. So in case of trading, mostly they'll generate the new tracking number at the purchase level. And in case if it is a manufacturing company, so during the manufacturing entry, they will be generating the tracking number. So let me show you in manufacturing entry. So if I'm going to other vouchers, stock journal, change mode, use for manufacturing journal. So if I'm selecting this particular item, right? So here you can see cost tracking number will be available. You can generate a new number, right? For this particular stock item, whatever the other items that you use it for assembly purpose. For example, currently it is HP laptop. So I'll be using the spare parts to assemble this particular laptop, right? So even in that scenario, even in case of assembly kind of a assembling kind of a businesses, you can also use this manufacturing entry. So whatever the consumption items are there, in those items, it is not required to enable this cost tracking number. Only in your main finished product or main item to produce or assemble, only in that item master, you are supposed to enable the cost tracking option. So it's not required for your raw materials. So this is about the item cost tracking. So as I mentioned that based on the transactions that you record, item cost analysis report will be helpful for customer to know the exact profit and loss that they have incurred. So again, customer here may try to relate the profit and loss with the profit and loss account statement. So again, here we need to convince the customer and we need to inform or educate customer stating that how both the reports are different. So under the item cost analysis report, profit or loss will display based on the transactions that they have tracked, right? So if the transaction is not part of these tracking numbers, obviously those will again participate in your profit and loss account statement. So based on that, your profit and loss account statement will calculate the profit or loss, right? So for example, you have purchased some stationery items, which is not part of this particular feature, right? You have incurred the salary expenses of the employee. So you have incurred some rewards expenses for the employees. So all those will not be part of this item cost analysis, right? So that is the reason whenever there is such kind of expenses which are not related to this item cost tracking, the profit and loss account as per your P&L account will not match with the item cost analysis report. So most of the customers will ask for this particular comparison. So we need to educate the customers how both the reports are different and what are the scenarios which will not match with the values.